actually went through an entire podcast one time, and it's called "The Button Has Skipped," and the recording didn't happen, and it was like 2 hours and nothing. But it's
Oh
going.
no.
It's going now. So, hello everyone. This is the Godfo Universe podcast. This is Dan, writer and co-creator of the Godfo Universe. My artist and co-creator Josh is not with me today. He is on a family trip, so we can guilt trip him when he comes back because who needs families, right? But
Mm.
anyway, today I am joined by Benjamin, and I will let him introduce his own last name because I do not want to butcher it that terribly because I am from the American South and we ain't good at names. So Benjamin, please introduce
Well,
yourself.
I am also from the American South. I am Ben Fuselier, and I am a writer and creator from New Orleans, Louisiana. And I am currently producing issue 2 of my comic series Outlaw Nights. This is part 2 of Genesis of a Renegade, and I'm really excited to be getting this puppy out because this is a series that I'm hoping is going to go on at least 8 issues.
Nice.
So yeah, like the more traction we can get, the better.
Fuselier is definitely a New Orleans, Louisiana name, and that explains why you can pronounce it and I can't. Like for our listeners who aren't acquainted, there's the South, there's Louisiana, and there's Texas, and they are three different things. Like, and nobody claims Florida, so like Louisiana has a French flair that no other state in America has. Texas is just Texas, and Texas will tell you it's Texas. the
Yeah.
the rest of us are just like biscuit eating, corn grit eating yokels, and I will claim that proudly. But Benjamin, I've got your campaign here pulled up on Kickstarter. Outlaw Nights. I'm looking. I assume this is the cover. It's got this awesome guy with a robot arm, striking his fist, and he's got electricity coming out of him. Uh,
Oh yeah.
I've read through it, everything you've provided here, and I think I actually remember your first campaign from a couple of years ago. Whenever I was first checking out indie comics, because it looked super familiar, and then when I started looking at the art, I'm like, yeah, I've seen this before. And
Oh nice.
you're I'm gonna try to do this. I'm gonna try to. I assume your artist is Juanito Arcano.
Yeah, he's from Bolivia. I don't even know how to pronounce his last
At
name,
least you
but
can
you
spell it to give him credit.
know.
Well, what threw me for a loop, I was like, is he like a Mexican transplant to New Orleans? Because he's got like a Spanish first name and like a French last name, or however I don't know how Bolivia works. I just know that that's
I
where.
have I I only learned this year where Bolivia is. So,
I know it's where Mike Tyson said he was going to fade into when he tried to say oblivion. He said Bolivia. So, Outlaw Nights, Genesis of a Renegade Part 2. This looks really, really, really cool, man. Like, of course, the first thing that hits you is the art, which for for so many indie comics can't be said is good. But this one actually, that cover is great. It reminds me of like a late '80s, early '90s, like like NES video game cover, like
oh
that I
yeah.
would want to pick up at Finkley's or Movie Gallery before Blockbuster existed.
That is a huge compliment.
Yeah, it
It
looks
is
awesome.
huge.
The color fading, especially the way he did lighting. If it's the same art, the artist is covered by Jay Krager. Did a fantastic job on that. It kind of reminds me of Contra, the original Contra cover.
Ooh, nice.
Did some of that go into? Because I
Yeah.
see you got some aliens in here, so just go ahead and give us a rundown, man.
Well, really, I was inspired by a lot of different genres and a lot of different stories. Like I've been working on this idea for at least like 15 years. Probably been a little bit longer now. But I remember I first came up with this idea when I saw the first Pirates of the Caribbean in the theaters.
Yeah.
Like that's old at this point. Um, and I was just thinking about like I loved the revitalization of the genre for pirates. But I wanted to put an even more different spin on it. I wanted to have like some futuristic fun action going on. And so I started thinking about space pirates and such, and fan of some anime growing up. So I mean, I was already introduced to the concept, but they never like all the animes I saw with space pirates, they never did what I would have wanted to see
Yeah.
them do with space pirates. It was always kind of had a different angle on it than I would have preferred. Like, I don't know if you remember, like Outlaw
Yeah,
Star.
that's exactly what I was thinking. Outlaw Star. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a fan of that, but like, I did not like what they did with pirates in that story. They were like, they were all evil and they were all like into magic,
Yeah.
which was just bizarre to me. I'm like, why do we need magic?
Yeah.
Like,
You already have
we're
space
already in
pirates.
space. And so like and so I wanted to play around with the idea of the pirate genre, and particularly how pirates are in, I guess, the romanticized stories, similar to like what they did in Pirates of the Caribbean, Treasure Island, etc. And I also
Treasure
learned about.
Planet. If you
I
remember that
didn't
one.
watch it, and I don't think I want to watch it because I don't like leaning on stereotypes and all that, and
What about
that whole
Titan
movie
AE? Do you remember that one?
vaguely.
Yeah. But I didn't mean to interrupt you. Yeah, like this. That's what that's reminded me of a little bit. Like a lot of the colors reminded me of Titan AE, which is a good thing.
Okay. Yeah, I just and I've just been playing around with it, so like in a lot of ways I think the story, it's a combination of what you'd get from a pirate story, classical. Then you'd also get some futuristic anime elements in there. Then you've also got elements of like a heist story. You've also got elements of a western. It's just a big old mishmash. Things where it was like I was just picking and choosing, like, well, I like this, I don't like that. I'm gonna mix and match. I think that's how like most stories kind of come together nowadays, because it's like there's nothing really super new under the sun. It's that it's different combinations of classic things that have worked.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying. To go back to your critique of space pirate anime, and I know, first of all, Cowboy Bebop is a wonderful anime, and it did a little
Yes.
bit of the grittiness, but I mean the thing with pirates is they're gritty. It's a lived-in world. It has texture, and Cowboy Bebop kind of did that, but it definitely looks like that's what you got with this. Like I'm looking at a character right now, Pirate Hunter Wellington. Um, He's got
Yes.
a bionic arm. It looks like some cool headgear and a dope gun. I mean, and this looks. You're right. And this looks like you capture kind of Western, well, Western westerns in a good way. It's something that Japan still kind of shies away from a little bit. Is that kind of lived in world, you know?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I totally know what you mean with that.
Plus, let's be honest. I miss some of us miss like '80s extreme Americanism.
I do. Like the funny thing is like I do like some aspects of modern storytelling, and there is some of that, but it's like yeah, there's the modern stories, they lack a real heart to them. They lack depth in a lot of cases. Um and I find like, and yeah, it's like it's a soapbox for whatever political affiliation you're on.
In completely unrelated
And
news, Ray Palpatine is coming back.
yes, finally,
The wait is long over.
I I've been waiting with bated breath. Uh, Yeah, like, you bring that up, like I bring up Star Wars way too much
Nah, man, go
in my
for it.
life. But it is really like a classic example of what we're talking about with the drop off in modern storytelling, of how the modern Disney Star Wars stories, it's all flash and no substance.
Oh yeah.
Like the story has there's no purpose to the story, there's no reason. There's no deeper messaging, or like any messages that are in it are so vapid and surface level. There's nothing that really, I guess, connects to the audience on a deeper level. There's no aspect to these stories that a person can really relate to and invest in. It's all just, well, look, the people in the story, they look different than they've traditionally looked. Like, well, that's fine, but what else is there to it? Well, they look different.
They
Oh, okay.
they all feel like they were written by a committee of 20-year-olds. And you can be 20, you can't control that, but committee, like literally they feel like a bureaucratic checklist of a board meeting room.
Yeah. And it's really just I wanted, with stories like Outlaw Nights, it's like I wanted to bring back the spirit that I had watching fun cartoons and such on that came from the late 90s mostly.
Yeah.
Like, particularly like anime and such. Like I loved anime for the end of the 90s. Like that was my favorite type of anime. Seemed like when they transitioned into the 2000s, something about the newer versions I just wasn't as keen on. I felt like they didn't have enough I guess they didn't have enough like presence, or like they didn't have enough of a distinct look to each one.
Hmm. Again,
It's like,
that grit isn't there.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely a big part.
And not to jump off the topic, but I mean, you're like what? I assume like in your 30s, correct?
I am 33.
Okay, I'm 35, and people that are a little bit younger, I'm not gonna rip them. But if you were born in like 2020, or it's not 2020, my baby was born in 2020. If you were born in 2000, you're 23 now, which means you're probably finishing up college. But man, you guys don't understand. Like the end of the 90s for a lot of culture felt like the end of the world. It was this weird thing. We were going to the year 2000. I mean, I was rewatching The Matrix, and it's like, man, like that kind of idea of like a redefining and a reshaping of everything. Like it was like the beginning of an end. It felt like,
Yeah.
and I'm not gonna philosophize too much because that's not why I'm here. But I feel like if you didn't experience that, it's hard to what you like, kind of hard to appreciate and kind of see the differences, like you said, between that media of like the 80s and 90s to the 2000s and on. There is a vast difference, and if you didn't live through it, it's kind of hard to see it, I think.
Yeah, and I would agree. And it's one of those things where, like, I think I was talking about this a little earlier, but it's the idea that like there are aspects to modern storytelling that work,
Yeah.
but it's that they're just not it's not played out to its full potential. Like I'm totally fine with like, okay, well, like let's have different races and different genders and all. Like I'm totally cool with that. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, that seems like it'd be fun. But it doesn't get played with organically.
Yeah, it's
It
not. It's just
doesn't
not good.
Yeah, it doesn't serve the story at all. Like, and they don't make these characters three-dimensional enough.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the
It's
whole thing. Is like, I mean, my favorite X Men growing up was Angel, Warren Worthington, and Bishop, two completely different, two completely different characters, but nobody cared at the time. Man, oh god, this I got to stop this. This cover code pinup by Brian Lobdell Lobdell. Man, that's a dope poster, man. Let's get some well articulated girl wielding a gigantic cannon with a with an alien raptor on her chest. please,
Yeah,
please tell me about this
that was a
character.
Code. She doesn't like. She comes into play in issue 1 a bit.
Mm-hmm.
She really doesn't get fleshed out just yet. Like, I think she's gonna come more into play in issues 3 and 4. It's just this was just sort of her introduction because she's one of the main crew members of the ship. And so her whole thing is that she's very silent.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't like to talk a lot. She's very reserved, and she lets her knife do most of the talking.
Oh, that's great.
And yeah, when she first shows up in issue 1, she's got that Gatling gun going. So she's providing cover fire.
Well, who's the
And yeah,
raptor on her, or the alien raptor on her shoulders?
believe it or not, that is not actually connected to her. It's like, that little creature was just in like a small part of issue 1. Like, it was just kind of a background creature. At my original artist, he just wanted to throw it on the cover.
Well, man, you should.
I was like, all right. I was like, cool, yeah, like he looks cool. And when Brian saw that cover, he thought, oh, well, that creature must belong to her. So he just put the creature in the poster with her. And I was like, well, it looks good, so let's do it.
Hey, man, something we talked about this a lot on here. The rule of cool has been dead for too long. Like manga knows the rule of cool. Comics lost the rule of cool. Like, you got to bring it back, and man, that's got it. That looks awesome. She's how much of a Private Vasquez went into that from Aliens?
Believe it or not, I am. This is gonna be a strike against me, but I have not seen Aliens.
Man, you should, because the Code and her would get along just fine.
I mean, I definitely did draw inspiration for her look from like a lot of sci-fi movies that I had seen, and it just kind of meshed together for me.
You're like, big guns in every sense of the word. That was like your note to the artist.
Also, personality-wise, I would actually compare her to Fujin from Final Fantasy VIII.
Yep.
That was the big personality inspiration for me.
Man, that's cool.
Somebody who doesn't talk a lot, who is very serious and stoic-minded.
He said, "Give me woman, big gun, no talk." That sounds awesome.
She's gonna be more well-rounded later on. Like, we're gonna get to know her better.
She's pretty well-rounded now.
Yeah,
And thank you for not doing Eris from Final Fantasy VII. Nothing against her, but I don't need another like soft mommy figure that dies.
Yeah, and Aerith was actually always my.
Thank you for,
believe it or not, like,
thank you for correcting the proper original name without saying it so obviously.
7 is my favorite video game of all time.
There you go.
It's my absolute favorite, and I've played through like the compilation quite a bit. And after playing Crisis Core, I grew to hate Aerith because I felt like Zach went through so much hell just to go see her again.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you play the original 7 again and you talk to Aerith for the first time about Zach, he's just like, oh yeah, he was just some guy I dated. I didn't really care, and probably just went off and dated somebody else. I'm like, he died going to see you.
It's like, I hope you get stabbed by a giant sword in a church.
I love Tifa.
Yeah. Oh man,
Tifa's the best.
Tifa was definitely the best girl. Like there's no getting around that. She might be like one of the best females in like video game anime history.
I would agree with that in spades.
This this other Cyrus and Serpent by Juanito Arcano and Arseno, I don't want to say it, and Marcos Martins. Um, it's a picture of two guys. Which congrats on finally actually getting like masculine dudes in art.
Oh, it was an uphill fat battle, but
But they're in front of a ship that looks completely 80s and 90s anime inspired. It looks awesome. It's got like red dots on it, kind of like a blue fin, jagged fin, and a ring around it. It
yeah,
looks awesome. Is there a name to this ship, or does it get like a fighter class of some kind?
like like when I first gave the idea for that image to Juanito, I was picturing their ship Hazard in the background, but
Hazard. Okay.
honestly, like it looks totally different from Hazard. So I don't know if he was just pulled inspiration from another ship and decided to throw it in there.
It looks awesome, but
Not quite sure.
like use that ship in some way because it looks fantastic. It looks fantastic. It like I said, it looks like golden age anime. And let's dive into this properly real quick. Let me get up here. I'm gonna go back to the summary. I'm gonna read it out for everyone who can't see it. All right. Anytime you want to interject, of course, go for it. Add any clarification, anything. Welcome to the 31st century. Humanity has been colonizing outer space. History is very much repeating itself as the nations of Earth are at each other's throats, competing over territory and resources. Technology, extremism, and polarity have advanced, but the issues are very much the same. In spite of Earth's attempt to stranglehold the colonies, this is sorry, I read that wrong. In spite of this, Earth's attempt to stranglehold the colonies is backfiring, as the vast expanse of space has given birth to a new golden age of piracy. That's a great line right there. The golden age of piracy. Crime is booming. In the midst of the chaos of government and rebellions galore, we have our main character, Cyrus Lawson. Cyrus, I assume I'm saying that name correct. Cyrus.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Cyrus has had a rough upbringing and is seeking a life as a small town hero. He has joined the colony guard of a small, insignificant settlement known as Therese. He figures that he won't have to deal with anything serious. He is very wrong. The pirates of the ship Hazard, led by the infamous captain known simply as Ivory, are invading the settlement seeking a special data fragment. This will lead them to a treasure that is a complete game changer. That's a really cool description, man. So it's actually like some crazy swashbuckling adventure out here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be, this arc is gonna last about 8 issues if everything goes according to plan.
Well,
Might be longer,
well, no,
but I don't know.
I don't want to spoil anything, but can you give us like an overarching view of the arc itself? Like, are we gonna? I mean, what are we gonna be seeing? Of course, we're getting like swashbuckling adventure and treasure hunting and stuff. Are we getting like military and political intrigue, love interest, this kind of stuff?
I would say all of that,
Yeah.
pretty much. I would say the heart of the story, I sort of took inspiration from Treasure Island originally, where the heart of the story is very much the growing friendship slash initial animosity between Cyrus and Ivory.
Mm-hmm.
In many ways, they start off being kind of opposites and kind of rubbing each other the wrong way, but as time goes on, they start to discover they have more in common than they think.
Yeah. Jack and Long John Silver dynamic.
Yep,
That is a
exactly.
fantastic dynamic, and this isn't. I'm not gonna promote my own stuff. You don't do that on your own stuff, but we've used that dynamic in a novel, um, as well, and
Ooh, nice.
it's such a classic, hard to beat, um, masculine relational trope. I mean, and I'm not trying to nerd out here, but I'm so glad that you know Treasure Island. I know
I love it.
well, that sounds stupid, but I mean, we are of a generation now and getting into one that they don't read the classics, and they have no idea but I mean, maybe like that one and like Saul and King David, like that dynamic. That's an inverse where like one's trying to kill the other one violently, you know. But those classic stories of male power struggles within, especially like such a small setting as a ship, you know. That's
Yep.
just this kind of that's almost like a lost thing now. I'm not trying to harp on it so much, but we've touched on it briefly. But particularly masculine stories are just not there, man. You know, and I'm really glad to see one.
No, I totally agree. Like, it's I don't understand this modern desire to completely annihilate like all aspects of classic literature. It's like you can grab the heart of those stories, the things that made them so resonant. You can apply them in a modern sense. Like it doesn't need to be strictly old school. It's like there's it's like I was saying earlier, it's like there's ways to do this stuff a proper way, but it's like they keep going for the simple surface level crap. I don't quite understand it. Like
Well, and I mean, I was going to save this for later, but to piggyback off of that, I think I have a theory. Like I said, I'm not trying to drag you into my philosophy here, but I am glad to talk with somebody. Um, in the internet age, and it sounds so like Reddit edgy or whiny, but a lot of people, it's a true fact that a lot of people don't have that much life experience, especially with other human beings. And that's really sad. It's really weird coming from a pale ass Irish guy. I look like I don't go outside even. It's just because I work at a desk all day. Um, but all that to say, I don't think people
yeah.
know how to write people. I don't think they know how to write interpersonal relationships, especially for some reason masculine ones. I don't mean we just have, especially positive or not. I mean, not even positive. I would say positive, but like rambunctious and dangerous men. It doesn't mean that they're evil. It just means that they're capable. You know. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to take up time here, but I saw what struck me and like made me like want to talk to because you contacted me, but we don't always talk to everybody that contacts us because you get to talk to people that some people they just don't interest you. But you said I've been training in your biography here. I have been training and working on my writing, editing, and acting going over 10 years. All right, that's already an impressive sentence, but what's really impressive is the 10 years thing because most people do not have that desire and that passion and discipline and dedication to do that. So
Wow.
they don't.
I figured it was more common, honestly.
No, man, most people, I mean, maybe I'm just being biased here, but like I said, I come from a music background, and with music is if you're not making music for a living by 25, you quit. You go open you either open a barber shop or you start making like some douchey hipster beer at a restaurant.
Oh, Lordy.
Maybe it's different in Louisiana because everything's different in Louisiana. So
Well, I mean, music is huge in the city.
yeah,
Like, everybody and their mother at some point, like I've known somebody who did music. Like I'm probably the only one who didn't have an aspiration to music.
it's probably why you're successful as a person.
I appreciate that. I feel like in many ways I'm still just getting started. Um, like I did issue one of Outlaw Nights.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like the first major success I've had. Like I've done short films and stuff before.
Nice.
Nothing really like nothing I felt like I didn't have that big of an accomplishment under my belt until the first issue of Outlaw Nights.
Well, let's talk about that one just to catch people up who are new. Because I mean, who didn't know about it or didn't back it. Can you like I said, I hate spoiling stories, but I mean, do you want to catch us up with that? I'd love to hear more about it to get us to here, so people are more interested in issue two.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically what was in the description that
Mm-hmm.
you were reading earlier. It's basically that. It's that Cyrus is working as part of the colony guard. Hazard breaches the defenses of Therese, and all hell's breaking loose. And as Cyrus's team is going into response, Cyrus kind of gives us a little bit of a small intro to himself.
Yeah.
Not like a major, like not a wall of text kind of thing, but just a nice brief little summary of who he is because he's very young. He's about 18. So he's and basically in it we see that he's very heroic. He's very I would say he's a little too stereotypically heroic. Like he seems kind of one dimensional at first.
Yeah.
And the idea is that these pirates, as they're in the middle of a fight, is like some of the pirates are seem to be more harsh or more just generally shitty, like more shitty than the other pirates that they're
Yeah.
with. There's a double cross that ends up happening. I can give that away.
Okay.
Basically, push comes to shove, Cyrus ends up being kidnapped by these pirates. And so this issue 2 kind of picks up where Cyrus is now kind of working on the ship. He basically has no choice. He's been taken, and he's got a strong hate boner for pirates. But I think this issue is where he's starting to get a big view of it.
Well, I want to say to the listeners that aren't watching this on YouTube is what everything he just described is portrayed already in the blank line art with no dialogue. Like I'm looking through it as you are describing it, and I'm like, yeah, like this. This sounds like a small sentence, but I don't mean it that way. Like the art is competent, and to me, when I say that, that's a highly complimentary work to your artist because so many indie and mainstream artists are not competent, particularly in their storytelling. But whenever I'm looking at it and I'm listening to you describe it, I'm like, yeah, this adds up. I'm not going, I don't see what he's talking about. So I mean that in a high complimentary sense. And like here at the Godfoot Universe, we believe in radical transparency. Like quite frankly, if I didn't want to be here, I just wouldn't.
Yeah.
So this is, and I'll tell you one thing: your boy Juanito knows how to draw the female form. I'll give him that.
Oh yeah.
He's a beyond competent artist. He clearly knows anatomy of male and female, and he knows texture. Like you can see, he's seen someone wear clothes before. I'm sorry, but sometimes you buy a book or you see a book and you're like, oh, like has this person seen a person before? Like, and you've got to tell me about this Wellington character though with the cybernetic arm. I mean, this dude looks like he's about to he looks like he's about to beat Sylvester Stallone into the ground.
As his as you had noticed earlier, yeah, he is a pirate hunter. He works for the British military.
Those bastards. It's always the British.
And he's and because so much of him has been replaced with cybernetic enhancement, he's a little unhinged.
Yeah.
As you could probably tell from the cover, he's got kind of a sadistic berserker side to him. And so he's hunting down the Pirates of Hazard because of the heist they pulled off in issue 1.
Yeah.
So he's kind of the main villain for this issue because there's gonna be a badass fight sequence toward the end.
Well, again, I love that he's portrayed as competent. We've had so many stupid villains and stupid people, like heroes even, that you're not afraid of it. Every picture that this guy's in, he's got the heroes on the run. Like he looks intimidating.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And he looks like he enjoys it.
That was, I mean, I think that especially, I was inspired growing up by my favorite anime of all time. Probably know what I'm gonna say. Is the Dragon Ball series.
Oh yeah.
And There's one thing Dragon Ball Z did. It was like they made sure to up the stake with your villains.
Oh yeah, always.
It's like that's the key to making an exciting action show. Is like you can't automatically think, well, okay, they're just gonna win this fight, and that's it. No, you got to present a challenge. Your hero's got to overcome something.
Well, man, like I said, I hate to I don't want any spoilers, but like, what do you see? You said you were planning on 8 issues, but like, where do you see this going? Because this seems so big and so vast. Like, this could easily, if this were in the '90s, this could easily be a 30 issue run. Like, if I saw it on the newsstand, like if Image had put this out in like '96,
This
yeah,
arc in particular is going to be 8 issues, but
okay,
my hope is that I'll be able to keep making Outlaw Nights as the series like going on. Like I'm
mm-hmm.
hoping to do like some spin-offs, and I even had a couple of ideas for like some prequel stories to do. So yeah, like there's things that I want to do with this universe. It's just this is sort of our this arc is sort of like the flagship.
Yeah. Well, that's a great way to do it. Kind of introduce a little bit at a time and then explode. Um,
Exactly.
uh, Switching gears here. Of course, this is. I use this term not in a bad way because I come from a music background. We're talking about the product, but what I also like to do here is get into a little bit more about like what makes you tick and your idea behind it, because it's important to sell yourself as well as your product, because I don't know, it's just that's how we as humans function, and that's why I've bought stuff from guys based strictly off of their philosophy and their transparency without like sight unseen of their project, you know. um,
Oh yeah.
I love that you put risks and challenges. I am mitigating the risk as much as is humanly possible. Our goal is set precisely to what we need, and I am setting the delivery date to January 2024. That is fantastic. I can't tell you how many times I have seen these things. You know, I mean, the whole joke with indie comics is that they don't deliver on time. You know, uh, God, ex professionals can't do it for some freaking reason. Guys getting paid to just talk on YouTube can't deliver their books on time. And I mean, he's amazing. He's amazing. But Frank
What's
Miller can't even deliver on
what's
time.
the thing that was aggravating about issue 1 was that I gave myself a lot of breathing room with the delivery date. What ended up happening, this is so bizarre, but it's probably not uncommon, was that my original artist on issue 1, we were halfway done, and he just vanished off the face of the earth.
That's an artist. That's an artist, man.
He just like I never like nobody heard from him. Like people were messaging me saying like, "Hey, have you heard from Render lately? We haven't been able to get in touch with him." Like I have no idea what happened to him. He's just gone.
You're like,
So I had
it
to
sounds like it
scramble.
sounds like Render needs to get his art rendered to me.
I had to scramble, and Simon Potier stepped up and finished issue 1 for me. And
Nice.
so like I was very grateful. But as a result of this delay issue, we ended up being about like a month or two late,
Mm.
and that bugged me.
I don't
It
blame
was
you.
like because I went out of my way to try to give myself enough room for
Mm-hmm.
like mistakes, but even then, we still went over time.
Is this guy's name really Render Contender?
That's what he called himself. I don't know what his real name is. I got the vibe that was due to like, especially during that point in time, that was
Yeah.
when CG hysteria was at its
Gotcha.
height. So it was like people working for them, they don't want to be put on a blacklist. So it's like,
That's so insane. That is so insane. Like we're not affiliated with CG because we don't really know how CG works. Like, and we
what's up?
want like we wanted our own thing. Like we wanted Godful Universe and to stand on our own two legs with that. But I never got I don't get drama, man. I don't get it. We live in a world full of adults. Like you can't either say
It's basic.
yeah, say you don't care
Yeah,
about it
it's
or just move on.
basically a group of people rejected the modern standards.
Or
And
lack
so as a
thereof.
result, And so as a result, they were all branded as evil racists and sexists and white supremacists.
Oh, I
So,
think everybody's one of those now, aren't they?
yes. And so,
I woke up today,
yeah,
so I must be one of those.
it got so insane. Like it got to the point where like, you got these professionals who feel like they have to publicly disavow Comicsgate or their jobs will be in trouble.
Oh no, my comics job.
It's so
Or
nuts. Like
I'm making nothing.
it's like something you would expect to hear about from like stories of like communist countries in the 20th century.
Man, people don't hear those stories. That's the problem.
It's nuts. Like and like and it's funny because like when I went into the comics thing originally, I thought, well, comics will probably be less volatile than like the film industry. And it's like, no, it's actually more.
That's what surprised us about. This is what I've told so many people this. Like I got into this, from music, and music's full of drama queens and skinny jeans, and I mean, you're going to get stabbed by the same guy that booked your show and paid you earlier that night. but I was like, I was telling my artist is also a former musician as well, or current. We're both current musicians, not former. But anyway, we're both telling our wives, we're like, man, I thought there was a bunch of whiny douches in the music business, like the comic business.
Seriously.
It's like, what happened? Like, I mean, the image, it was like bad boy extreme era. They were like killing people left and right on the covers. It's like, what happened?
I know.
Who let the milk mommies in?
I think the thing that drew me to CG that I liked was the fact that beforehand it seemed like most people reacting to hyper politicization in like media. Big thing was it was always people sitting around complaining about it and talking about it, and it was like people in CG were the ones who were like, well, we'll just go ahead and we'll make what we want.
Yeah.
We'll provide the alternative. It's like, okay, like that's constructive. Like let's do something about it. Don't just sit there and whine about things,
No, you can't take business away from the big boys. They get mad.
Yes.
I mean, if I had to guess with that whole thing, because like I said, I don't know much about it. I've tried like watching videos and catching up on it. It's just like, to me, it seems like some guys started a parallel comics economy, and the mainstream guys didn't like it. And
that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be crazy and say like there aren't extreme personalities in CG, because there are.
Oh yeah, no matter where you go and anywhere, people saw a guy get crucified and said, "Hey, forgive these people. I love them." And they're like, "Hey, he wants us to kill people." That's what human beings. That's like recurring joke for us. Like that's what human beings can do. Is like, hey, that guy says he loves everybody. We should probably kill people for him.
Yes. Yeah, and so it's like I feel like I think I'm more center, I guess,
Yeah.
than most CG. Like it's like I'm not super into the clannish aspect of it. I'm like, I'll associate with anybody who's friendly and who can have a nice chat,
Attention
it's
everyone.
like, yeah.
Attention everyone. Benjamin is a reasonable human being.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's I just hate seeing movies and comics on the route that they've been going. And to an extent video games, though I would say video games get away with a lot more nowadays than those other two.
Well, Gamergate was way more successful than people will say. Like those guys, like the gamers, like held the line with that thing. They were like, "No, you're not taking our games."
Oh, Gamergate it's considered like you're talking about Al Qaeda.
Oh God.
You're talking
Al Qaeda. Yeah, that shows our age. Okay. They were like pre-ISIS, but post 6 other crazy groups that no one else remembers that take over every 12 years.
They were pre Gamergate, so The predecessor.
Man, I'll never forget. I found out about Gamergate from some documentary or something where this woman was talking about, and hey, it's terrible this happened to her, but she was like, my address got doxxed, and I had to leave my home, and multiple things went through my head. I was like, that's terrible. No, that should happen to nobody. That's a terrible thing. But I was like,
Yeah.
leave your home. What are you like? What are you talking about? Like I had to think about it. I was like, oh, they're not from the South. Like, like you don't leave your home. Someone comes, it's like they're just dead. Like that's how it works. Like there's dogs and there's guns. You have to leave your home. No.
I mean, my city survived a friggin' hurricane that tried to drown it. So.
That was well that you guys survived that like what every 6 years.
Yeah, but there was one time where it almost won.
Yeah, it came really close, and then Kanye said one of many crazy things in his career on TV.
Oh God. I'm like, I used to dislike him. Now I just kind of feel sorry for him because I'm like, it just keeps getting nuttier and nuttier, and he's the architect of his own
Yeah,
misery.
he dug a hole, and he has all these people around him just handing him shovels. Just go deeper, man.
Seriously.
But yeah, no, man, and that's a beautiful city, New Orleans, man. It really is kind of a once in a history thing that's never been replicated. It's a cultural anomaly of just a mixture that somehow survived the test of time and thrived and succeeded. It's insane that it's a weird anomaly.
I think in a lot of ways, like that's how cultures come into being, is that
Yeah,
different cultures combine and they like exchange. They're like, okay, well, I like this idea, I don't like this idea. Let's find it. Let's construct a new culture with the things that we like
yeah.
from
Let's
each
be
one.
weird.
Yeah, and it's like that's how new cultures come. Like even like all the groups that we're used to hearing about these days, they all were derived from multiple groups that had different customs that came together and mixed and matched.
Oh yeah,
That's how it goes. But nowadays that's called a cultural appropriation.
yeah, and that's. I mean, I hate to get off topic, but that's the kind of stuff that interests me though. Is the people that are more like society planners, which is what drives the people screeching all the time. They think they know how things are supposed to be organized at all times, and they don't have a respect for like nature and the natural flow of things and the beauty of that. Like you couldn't plan a city like New Orleans. Like you would never, because the guys that founded it and lived there and everybody that came from all these literally diverse places and like languages and tongues, like they made something crazy. They never knew. They didn't know that was going to happen. It was just this natural offspring, and
Yeah,
that's beauty. That's nature. It's wonderful.
I totally agree.
Yeah. So
That may be what that ultimately bleeds over into a lot of Outlaw Nights in terms of like the colonies that we're going to be seeing in the future.
yeah.
Like they're all different mixtures of different cultures that are way in the future.
Well, that's what I like. That's what I like when I'm seeing. I'm seeing a guy here who's a bartender. He's kind of dressed like modern day, and then you've got literally Wellington here, a dude with cybernetic implants, and that juxtaposition is cool. I mean, and that's what is it? That's what Firefly kind of got at. It just didn't really get the time to do it, and it didn't have the budget to do it. But yeah,
I've been compared to Firefly before, and I've only seen the first episode.
I never finished the. It's only one season. I never finished it. I'm gonna be honest, like it's good, but I'm not a Joss Whedon fan. I think the best thing he did was Buffy, but that's just because I can watch that on mute. You put Sarah Michelle Gellar in anything or nothing, and I'll watch it. Um, but yeah, I love the it just looks like a lot. Calm down. What I'm seeing, especially from the technology and the people, it looks like a mismatch of natural growth of culture. And That's what's cool, and
With
it's what's,
that.
that's what makes things cool, and that's what make we just. I have this theory about like the Appleification of our society. Apple everything. It took the future that was cool and dirty and grim, and it made everything like white and black and sterile looking. Because like that's what an
Yeah.
Apple store is, and like every freaking like sci-fi that comes out after that is just that. It's very sterile. This looks like I could get like rabies from like an alien after getting shot by it. Yeah,
That is what I was going for with this. Like I totally agree with you. Like I think one of the things that I was always like averse to watching stuff like Star Trek in particular,
yeah,
and it's a surface level thing. Like my issue, like I started watching The Next Generation about a year or so ago, and I really enjoyed it. I was kind of kicking myself for not having checked it out earlier. It was because whenever I saw Star Trek and stuff, it's like I didn't like how crisp the uniforms were and
yeah.
how everything was very sleek looking. And I'm like, I just like I don't know, like it's like I like the idea of like a future with more individual expression.
Well, I think that's why Star Wars did so well, other than the fact that everything. But like no one ever seen anything like that before. It's like, oh, that kind of looks like my world, but worse and better at the same time. Like,
Exactly.
well, that's what I like about this. Like this really, and this isn't a downer, and I'm not saying you did this, but this screams like 80s future potential to me. Like when people in the 80s thought the future would be like before we got kind of to the Appleification of things. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
this there could be a natural. It's like an optimism. There could be a natural outgrowth of humanity into space, not some AI totalitarian god controlling everything.
It's like I kind of play with the idea that like Earth's nations are trying to be Big Brother.
Yeah,
They're struggling, like because expansive space makes it to where it's like it's not as it's harder than it was for Europe to control the colonies in the New World.
yeah.
There's way more distance and there's a lot more expanse to it. So it's like people have got more room to strike out on their own.
And it's still the dang British.
The reason it's the British is because my story, America ceased to be a nation like 10 years prior.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
Yeah,
Sad
that's
but
a little
true.
bit of my
Yeah,
nihilism
we'll
bleeding
we'll
in.
take that.
A little bit of my nihilism bleeding into it, but I think I did that because I didn't want to play around with like, oh, America in the future and all that. It's
Yeah.
like I don't know. I wanted to take a different twist with it, where it's like, okay, like American experiment kind of fizzled out, and so it's like, what happens to
Well,
the
imagine
people
that.
left in the wake?
Yeah, you're telling me that a guy from an American French city has a distasteful view of the British? Imagine that.
I've also got like I think China also plays a negative role in Outlaw Nights.
You don't say.
Um, Pretty much most of the nations, I would
Yeah.
say.
No, I think
Most of the European nations, especially, they're trying to relive the glory days of colonization of like the 1600s and 1700s.
yeah. Well,
Not going so well for them.
the average, let's say pirate, are they from like set nations, or is it is as diverse as pirating actually was? Is it like you pick up some people here, some people here from here, and then you've got like this kind of ragtag, scallywag group of people.
It is very diverse, but I would say that a lot of the pirate population is composed of refugees from America.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's great. Can you go into that some? I know you already have, but yeah, really tell me about that.
Well, Cyrus himself is an American refugee. Uh, Basically, he lost his parents when he was very young, and he's just been kind of drifting about from settlement to settlement, trying to lay down roots. So he finally, Therese is kind of like his best shot at it. But that, like, we pretty much in issue one, we went right into the action. Like, we didn't spend too much time exploring his background.
Yeah,
Just kind of gives you a quick little rundown of it. Then he's immediately fighting the pirates.
yeah.
Ivory and Serpent and Kodiak, most of the major, like all the major players of Hazard are originally Americans that tried to assimilate into other countries, and it just didn't go very well for them.
They loved freedom too much.
Yeah, well, I was playing around with the idea of like, well, like I don't think that every country would welcome these people with open
That's a
arms.
good point.
Like I think
Maybe Japan.
it's like I feel like a lot of it there would be a lot of cultural clashing, and as a the whole pirate thing, like pirates back in the day, they were pretty much misfits
Yeah.
for the most part. Like they all served in the military at one point,
People
and
forget that point actually. Thank you for bringing
that's
that
the
up.
thing. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of the pirates, especially the Pirates of Hazard, a lot of them are veterans.
Well, can you
Um,
thank them for their service for me?
yes. Yeah, like yeah, but that's the thing
Yeah.
is like there a lot of them were people in the military who didn't like the way the system was set up. They were like, well, we're gonna go over here and we're gonna create our own thing. We're the original Comics Gate.
Well,
And as you would imagine, they were demonized by the media at the time.
that's a great backstory. That's the kind of stuff I love to hear, is that kind of lore. Because a lot of people just be like, oh, well, they're just pirates. It's like, yeah, pirates are cool. You're right, but just because they're like Caribbean doesn't make them pirates.
It's interesting how when you read up on the history of real pirates, like I find it to be way more interesting than the the stories that you get stereotypically of
Yeah,
pirates in media. They're way more interesting.
yeah,
A lot
and
of it,
ridiculous. Like, speak about diversity, ridiculously diverse from literally across the world from each other, and like crews would end up on the same ships together that didn't even speak the same language.
yep. And they were pushing for democracy and republics way before Europe caught up.
Yeah, they also had a great way of designing busty women on the front of their ship. Very pro that.
Yes. I mean, like there were so many, there were kooky cases like, I think Blackbeard was probably the most extreme example that
Mm-hmm.
like people tend to point to. He really was like the asshole that you would picture with a pirate.
He
Then
give
you
us
had like
he give us all a bad name, man. Come on.
yeah, but then you got guys who are kind of more in the middle. You got guys like well, Steve Bonnet, but Steve Bonnet was kind of a wuss. You know, I forgot there was one I had read
His
about
last
that.
name's Bonnet, man.
There's a pirate I had read about that I forgot which one he was, but I remembered he was like the gentleman pirate. It was like totally he had like a strict code of honor that he stuck to. Like, he was not cruel to the people that he captured at all. Usually gave them an option to like join his crew. Would make sure to like drop off survivors to a place where they can find a way home. Uh, and I know like there was a pirate who like functioned with his wife. Is like his co-captain.
Be funny if he
He's
didn't
like,
want to be a pirate. She's like, you never do anything fun. Fine, I'll be a
I mean,
pirate.
it's like I like I just like the personality differences, and it's like, and that's what I play with a lot. Is like, the crew of Hazard
Yeah,
is, I would say they're far more honorable than your average pirate, although still, they still do some skeevy things. They're not as bad as a pirate that gets introduced in this issue, who's going to be coming up more in later issues, named Taurus.
nice.
And Taurus is very much your Blackbeard type.
Yeah,
He is no nonsense. You don't question him. If you question him, you're losing an arm.
yeah.
Like,
But we have cyber arms now, so
well, that's the thing.
yeah. No, that's great because the Disney route, which which most writers would go down now, particularly in comics and YA, is the lovable scallywags that are kind of stupid and just kind of there. Like, yeah, you're going with like, no, these are competent men from different backgrounds that are left alone, are dangerous, but are honorable in a sense. Like, these are well-rounded individuals, and they have internal conflict, and at the same time they understand hierarchy. This is more Master and Commander than Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes. Yeah, and the thing about it is, I love Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah,
But the first movie, reason I think so many people love the first movie and are less keen on the sequels is because when you look at the character of Jack Sparrow in the first Pirates, he is way more nuanced than he
mm-hmm.
is in the sequels. In the sequels, they just went full on. He's just totally a comedic character. He's
Yeah,
just there to, like, in the first one, he was comedic. He also had a deeper side to him that came out in certain instances. It was subtle.
mm-hmm.
Like, I loved what they did with his character in the first one, and I wish that they had explored that more. But they didn't, because it's Disney. They were like, well, what's sold?
Yep.
Okay, people thought he was funny. We're going to make him just nothing but funny. The rest of the thing, he's just going to be the joke man. Like,
Yeah, I mean, he threatened Elizabeth's life like in the first 3 minutes of meeting her. Like, the first thing he did was put like his chains around her neck and be like, "I'll kill her." Like, I don't care. Like, and he was sly. He was like a fox type more than he was like a clown.
yes.
Yeah. Like, he was
That's what
he
I
was
love.
thinking ahead instead of just reacting all the time.
And also, and I love how they showed how he did have certain moral lines,
Yeah.
even though he was not a moral person. He had lines that he wouldn't cross, though he didn't want you to know that.
Yeah.
Like, it was that in the end he would do the right thing reluctantly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love the way they constructed that, and it was just sad to see how they kind of cheapened it as time went on.
I think that's absolutely right, man. And to kind of sign us off here, because I've got to get going. But first of all, I've enjoyed the talk. Second, this seems like something. Like, here's a question. This seems like a passion project, and that's great because I think the future is the idea of the Iron Age, um, decentralized art, and as big corporations like Disney buy up crap and rehash crap, the only thing that's going to be left is guys like you and me and other indie creators who have passion projects, who dedicate their time and money and everything else to making something that they want to make. So you've been working on this for 10 years in one capacity or another. What is it that keeps you doing it? I mean, it can't be for the money. It can't be for fame. And I'm saying that as myself too. And it's not even that it's a cool idea, because that cool idea gets really bothersome when you're having to write another issue and the guy hasn't finished the first issue. So
Yeah.
I'm talking a lot. I'm trying to get to it. and it's in true like transparent honesty. What is that feeling that when you get up and it's another crappy day and you gotta go to work? What makes you be like, all right, I'm gonna take an hour to do this or 2 hours to do this when you don't want to sit there and do it?
Well, a lot of it is just the fact that whenever I go back over the story, it just gets me excited.
Yeah,
I made a story that I the big thing I was taught when I was younger, I was doing like my screenwriting classes in college and stuff. I was taught like when you write something, you write it for yourself primarily, and then you expand outwards. You'll do things to cater to some other people down the line, but at its core, it's like it's something that you want to see. And what I thought of, and it was like, I want to make a story that I would want to see that would get me into it. And as I started doing that more and more, like I fell in love with the characters. I fell in love with my scenario and my settings.
yeah.
And it's like, yeah, like there are days where I feel like, I don't want to deal with this right now, blah blah blah. Like then like when I have conversations like this,
Yeah.
it gets my gears going again, and it's like it gets me excited about it. Especially like when part of the reason I love commissioning from artists instead of like trying to draw things myself is the fact it's so cool to see these guys who have fine-tuned their craft
Yeah.
kind of take my words and put it all out on the page, and I get to see like the first time I got back some interior art from issue 1 of Outlaw Nights, like my serotonin went through the roof. Like
Yeah.
I was so excited to see these characters like fleshed out, like right in front of me. It's like they were born into real life.
That's the thing. Is like you want to make the thing that 12-year-old you would have like gone crazy for. You know.
Yes.
I got. You were talking about art. Like this is what I send my artist. Um, I'll try to like get some of it. Like that's the extent of my art. So I do every single page of every issue like that, and like this crappy stick figure, and then he does it because he's amazing. But then sometimes he'll send me a text and be like, "WTF is this supposed to be?" I have to like tell. I was like, "Okay, this is what this is supposed to be." And he's like, "Well, that ain't it." I was like, "I know that's not it." But no, I get that. I get that feeling. I completely get that feeling of you get something. I mean, I don't know, man. Like you get something back and it sets you off. But no, this I'm sorry, I keep talking as if you can see it and if everybody else can. This first, which everybody needs to go to Kickstarter and check out Outlaw Nights first of all, and, and second, yeah, this cover of Wellington, like it's standing superimposed over everybody. Yeah, that's great. That stands out at a comic book store, and that's something that like if you were growing up on GI Joe and He Man, you see that you're like, oh god, that looks awesome. Like my mom's totally not gonna buy that for me.
Yes.
It's too cool for a mom to buy.
Yeah, my mother hasn't seen all of Outlaw Nights just yet, and I think that's a good thing.
Well, and the other thing is that between that one and this code pinup, which I mean, it's worth
She hasn't
yeah,
seen that.
it's worth backing. It's worth backing just for those two posters. Even like I mean, I'm sure the comic's gonna be great. You're one of the few actual like writers in indie comics with credentials. Um, which I know credentials don't mean everything, but it makes your backers feel safer, but between that
I would
poster,
agree.
yeah, between that poster and the code pinup, like yeah, like I would love to have that code pinup on my wall. That looks awesome. I don't want my
Oh, I
like
mean,
my
you
2-year old daughter to be like, "Who's that?" Like, yeah, don't worry about it.
I mean, you can add it on to whatever perk you want.
Oh yeah.
It's only $5.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. Like, I know it's proper procedure to go through the different tiers, but I like people they can go through it. You've got it super competent. They can read it. I would rather talk to a person than just have you know what I mean. I'd rather have people get
Well,
to
yeah.
know you than just be like, oh, here's some technical jargon that you can read for yourself. What they can't read for yourself is what you tell them about yourself.
Definitely.
But
totally agree with that. Like, and that's the biggest thing I've noticed. The indie comics in general is just that like people tend to back more when they actually get to know the person, which
Yeah.
I think is really cool. Like, I think it's cool to have a direct line to your readers. They can offer suggestions or have questions or whatever. Like
Mm-hmm.
making it a more personal relationship. I think that's the best thing.
Yeah, well, that's how we create, um, a parallel comic industry. It for it to be decentralized people that basically it's off the trust, like the honor system. It's like, does this person have a good name? And that's worth more than anything. It's because if you have a good, I mean, that's why people buy iconic comics. Which, I mean, I've bought Common America. It's not my style, but I bought it because those guys they have their name. Like I was like, oh, they consistently do good output. The art's good, the writing's good. It's not up my alley, but I'll still back it because their name alone of I know these guys deliver, and that's what you got going here. Like you've run a successful campaign. This is your second one. Like you deliver.
Definitely.
Yeah. So Ben, or Benjamin, whichever you prefer. Thanks for coming on, man. I look forward to talking with you some more on here because I'd love to have you back on for like just to shoot the shit. I mean, I'd love to talk pirates with you. I would love to just pick your brain over pirate history. Um,
I
that'd be
am down.
yeah, or make your own video on that, and I'd love to like comment on it later or something like. But anyway, and we're gonna get into some stuff like Godfo Gaming that's coming out. Also, I'll keep you on the short list because I've actually really, really enjoyed this, and sometimes you talk with people and you don't really enjoy it, you know. But everybody needs. I'll include everything in every layer of social media we do. Everybody needs to go follow Ben on social media. I'll read that out just in case someone doesn't look at it or read it. But Outlaw Nights, it's spelled exactly how it sounds. That's night, Nights, as in it's dark outside. So the Twitter is Nights. Well, I mean, some people might think it's Nights
A lot
with
of
a K.
people think that. A lot of people think that.
Yeah, well, imagine that.
It's the version that Disney's gonna make eventually.
Yeah, then they won't pay you. Twitter, it's Nights Outlaw. Instagram, it's Outlaw Nights. Facebook has been Fuselier. Fusler. How do you say this?
Fuselier, but
Fuselier.
it sounds more phonetically correct when you
I'll
say
say
it.
Fusler. Fusler. And there's an email. I'm not going to read out your email. They can come read that. I never feel comfortable reading out people's email because I'm like, I don't know if they want people to email.
Yeah, I think the email I put on the Kickstarter it's like that's the official email
Yeah.
for that. That's not like my personal email.
You're like, I don't check that. I get my wife to check that crap. But yeah, Outlaw Nights. I will include all this stuff. I'll promote it whenever this comes out. I usually have a 24-hour turnaround, pretty quick, or 12 hours sometimes, because we haven't gotten the live streaming yet. But when this is up, everything will be pointing to that. And Ben, I look very much to talking with you again. For the show portion, I'm going to end it here, guys, and then I'm going to go hang out and talk to Ben for a second. So thanks for tuning in to the Godfo Universe podcast. Go back Outlaw Nights. If you don't back it, at least share it with someone, because I understand times is tough for people. Get it out, because this is the only way to build basically a better comic future, because it ain't coming from Marvel or DC. Thanks again, Ben. I'll talk with you later.